Greetings from Florida, the sweatiest, most mosquito-infested tourist trap that I've ever been to in my life. I had to take my family on holiday, and the only place I could find to do some work was a balcony, which honestly feels like I'm trapped in hell. But anyway, The Guardian has gone full Jordan Peterson. They have decided to clean their rooms bucko. After El Paso and Dayton, the left needs to reach out to men, not condemn them. That is the best fucking headline I've seen in a long time. I love the fact that they are now admitting that all they've been doing up until this point is condemning men. They are the problem. Men are the problem. Men. Oh, why are all these men going on these shooting rampages? How about we have some more affirmative action for women? That's what we really need. This was caused by a lack of women CEOs. That's what the problem is here. We need more affirmative action. We need more concern about the gender wage gap. We need more concern about women's issues because men just don't have issues. Men are oppressors. Or so I've learned from The Guardian. A lot of young men seem to be lost and disenfranchised, but only the likes of Jordan Peterson are engaging with them. Well, that's only because you can't help but say that masculinity is toxic. Exactly what kind of masculinity is not toxic? Even Sleeping Beauty has toxic masculinity in it. When the prince kisses Sleeping Beauty, he didn't ask her consent, even though it's awakening her from like 1,000-year slumber. And yet, that's still toxic masculinity. The author of this piece is someone called Iman Amrani, and I think that they've been watching my videos, or at least a lot of Jordan Peterson videos. Tougher gun laws would certainly help, but the attackers will still use knives, lorries, or homemade explosives to kill and maim. That's right. They fucking will, and this comes hot on the heels of a mass stabbing in California. Like there was one in Tokyo, I think, a few years back, and like we have in London every fucking day. Guns are actually not the problem, it's the desire to shoot one another or kill one another that is the problem. So where are young men getting this desire from? Why are they not finding themselves invested in society? Why aren't they setting down roots? Why are they not forming families, getting good jobs? Why are they not working hard and making society a better place, instead of trying to shoot the fucking thing up? Surely the question we need to be asking runs deeper. Be it anti-Hispanic, anti-Muslim, anti-Western, anti-women, anti-black, anti-Semitic, or anti-LGBTQ. I noticed how she didn't say young white men, but that's clearly who she's talking about, because she's not addressing any of the Hispanic gangs, Muslim terrorism, any of the kind... Anti-Western as well. Wait, anti-Western? Do they think... Well, I mean, I suppose that the socialists are. But, like... Okay, whatever, right? Why are so many young men prone to being radicalized in this way? There isn't any one particular way that young men are being radicalized. I mean, you said Dayton and El Paso. Well, the Dayton shooter was a leftist. The El Paso shooter was a white nationalist. It's not that there's a one particular way, but it is that these men don't have any real investment in society. Now, the way that all civilizations throughout all of human history have got men invested into society up until this point was through marriage. Was through women getting married to them and having their children. Like, this is the traditionalist, now conservative view of what the family should be, and that's what we've done through all of human history. And the second we abandon it, now we're getting mass shootings everywhere. Because mass shootings are not a common thing. They're not the norm, or they weren't, before the age of the degeneration of the family. The breakdown of the family unit. There weren't mass shootings everywhere. Weird, isn't it? Weird how causes have effects. Our author says, I know that discussions around men and masculinity are just as politically charged as discussions around terrorism. Holy fuck, Guardian. Like, basically the same thing, aren't they? I mean, what do you... Men, mass murder, terrorism, I mean, you know, they're the same basic subjects. Which makes this area difficult to address. This partially led me to make a Guardian video series on modern masculinity this year. Trash. That's why. Like, masculinity doesn't really exist outside of the traditional view of it, as far as I can see. Other than that, it seems to be young men who are becoming feminine in order to avoid the label of being called a man. Because being a man has been synonymized with being bad, according to left-wing outlets like The Guardian. As a journalist, I have covered stories in male-dominated spaces, from culture and sport to knife crime and terrorism. I've noticed that conversations around the relationship between masculinity and violence are often dragged into a partisan debate where the left seem to demonize men, as you do in your headline, saying, admittedly, we just demonize men, and the right claimed ownership over the masculine identity. The discussion has become even more charged with the rise of the Me Too movement. Well, there we go. All men are rapists is something that a lot of feminists are saying. I don't see many people on the left calling that out. Do you? Have you done it? Where is this being addressed? Where is the pathologization of men being addressed? It's not. That's why. It's only people like Tucker Carlson who'll speak in defense of young men and masculinity. Why do you think the right are taking ownership of this? It's the left-wing men who are going, oh, you know what, I'm going to wear a dress. Actually, I think I might be transgender. You know, like, the left seems to be willfully, deliberately abandoning the idea of masculinity as something toxic and oppressive and negative, when in fact I think it's the opposite. But I suppose I should give you praise for having noticed that thing that everyone else had noticed that you were doing. And then we get to Jordan Peterson. But the thing is, it's not that Jordan Peterson's actually a good idea for young men, obviously, for the leftists at The Guardian. Jordan Peterson, whose book 12 Rules for Life is an international bestseller and whose videos on YouTube have amassed millions of views, remains a problematic figure due to some of his ideas. Okay, well, would you like to list some of his ideas? What's that? No, you're just going to say something like, he has been accused of having an alt-right audience, which is obvious nonsense, as you say, although I was quite surprised when I went to an event of his in Birmingham, see quite a few men in the audience who describe themselves as Jeremy Corbyn supporters, lefties and even Marxists. Which makes it all the more important that Jordan Peterson condemns Marxism at every opportunity, doesn't it? Peterson's main tenet was that men and women need purpose and responsibility if they are to find meaning and direction in life. Demonstrably true. How could you refute that? How could you do anything that would do... How could you go any way to refuting that statement? If people need purpose and responsibility if they're going to find meaning and direction in life, yeah, otherwise they're going to sit there and go, well, I guess I'll eat another bag of chips, drink more beer, shoot some drugs, and watch porn all day. In a Fox News interview last year, Peterson was asked why young men are shooting up schools, and he said, because they're nihilistic and desperate. Life can make you that way unless you have purpose and a destiny. I agree. I completely agree. But young men have been called the problem for decades now. By leftists, by feminists, by people who want to see equality. Because the problem is, when young men put their mind to things and get to work, they are capable of phenomenal feats of autism. Like, when they're left to their own devices and video games, they'll build giant things in Minecraft that don't really exist. But they'll spend hours and hours and hours doing this thing massively successfully, until eventually The Guardian has to write an article that says, well, we need equality in Minecraft. Women aren't producing these amazing sculptures in Minecraft, etc., etc. It never ends. Because women are not driven in the same way that men are driven to create. It's just a fact of life. It's just one of those things you just have to live with. But it's easier to get equality if we drag the men down rather than lift the women up, even though no one has ever explained to you in the first place why equality is even a desirable thing. She at least accepts Peterson's premise. In a seemingly fractured world where organised religion is in decline, this point strikes me as an important one, especially when looking at the profiles of men who are committing these horrific acts of violence. Men who have grown up in disrupted families, gone through care or prison systems, have been more prone to radicalisation. Yes, there was an article on Real Clear Politics going around saying that 26 of the 27 previous mass shooters have all been from single-father households. Well, what happened there? How did the single-parent household become something that is becoming more and more common? In my country, half of children are born out of wedlock. In America, the country I'm currently in at the moment, in some communities, it's up to 75%. Why is that? Well, there is an incentive called the welfare system, frankly. It is an incentive for women to be able to say, you know what, I would rather be alone and have the government pay me money to raise my child than be in a relationship. Now, that's definitely something that they can do. That's definitely something that some women think, and it's definitely fucking selfish if you're going to look at it from the perspective of the child. It's bad for the kid. They end up with lower IQ because they're in poverty, because they've only got the attention of one parent, and if they're young men, they're much more prone to violence, radicalization, dropping out, committing suicide, I would imagine. And I imagine there's a whole slew of things that happens to young women as well. It's just that at the moment the feminists are busy hoovering up their attention, so we don't get to find out exactly what the problems are, because no one's asking that question. What happens to young women when they don't have fathers? I wonder if they become more promiscuous. I wonder if that's something that becomes something, sex-positive feminism. I wonder if that's a connection in any way, shape or form. What I love about this article is you can't help but acknowledge that Jordan Peterson's right. In the Fox interview, Peterson noted how shooters influenced each other, saying it's like a psychological epidemic. These people keep track of each other and there's a competitive element to it. Part of what drives them is motivation for notoriety. Notoriety is better than being ignored. That's true. In fact, it's like a giant fucking signal flare, isn't it? You won't talk to men who have got an issue and really have some problem with the way something in the world is going. You'll call them a bigot, a white supremacist, a Nazi, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as they do something radical, like go out and shoot a bunch of people, suddenly the manifestos over all the news outlets going, oh, the shooter had a manifesto, this is what he thought. It's like, could we not have that without the shooting? Can we not have, this is what this person thinks, here's their set of ideas, and they don't have to kill someone? Or a lot of people. Could we do that? Do you not think that would be more sensible? This is, again, I go back and back to this, but this is my main problem with censorship. When you tell people that their only option is violence because we're not going to listen to them, we're not going to give them a voice, we're not even going to allow them to speak in public discourse, then what do you expect? What choice do they have? I'm glad that The Guardian is finally getting woke to the red pill. I'm so fucking glad that they are finally getting off their ass and going, you know what? Maybe we need to start thinking about men as not the eternal oppressors. Maybe men can be victims too. Maybe, just maybe, if we set up a society entirely geared towards the whims of women, and we carry on for decades, and the mass shootings start increasing, maybe we're going to have to admit that there is a problem here. Whatever people feel about Peterson's politics, there is undoubtedly something in what he is saying here. People on the left tend to respond to him tribally. Rather, just to him, is it? No, they respond to everything tribally. Everything is a tribal lens when dealing with the left, rather than engaging with his ideas. But there are times when this is surely counterproductive. Yeah, I'll tell you what times they are. Every time. Every single time that the left does this is counterproductive. Peterson isn't the first to explore these questions of purpose and meaning, but the way he packages them has made them accessible to a huge audience. In turn, this is allowing him to own the discussion around masculinity. That's only because you guys are busy pathologizing masculinity. You're the ones saying masculinity is evil. It is bad to be a man. That's your message. The core philosophy of feminists is that men are oppressing women, therefore men are the problem. Why is that something that's like, oh God, Peterson's got this mystical hold over young men? Yeah, all he's doing is saying, you're not evil. I understand why you're struggling. Let me help you. Because young men look to older men for guidance. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that this is the sort of thing that women can necessarily fix. I think that young men are, for some reason, kind of hardwired to take older men's experience and guidance more seriously. I'm sure that's not universal. I'm sure there are the individual cases where that's not the case, but I think generally that's what young men are looking for. His biggest critics accuse him of being a pseudo-intellectual and dismiss him as an alt-right icon. Yeah, but that's because his biggest critics are, as you say, tribalistic pseudo-intellectuals who are in love with communism. That's the reason. They accuse him of being the mirror image of what they are, but he's not like that at all. He's in a different category altogether. But it doesn't matter. You've mentioned the alt-right multiple times in this article, even though Jordan Peterson is undoubtedly, like myself, a bulwark against the alt-right. The alt-right hate people like Peterson, they hate people like me, because we sit there, we are apparently gatekeepers in their minds. Gatekeepers to a large audience of people who we're not proselytizing their ideas to. And they're salty about that. And I'm so, well, sorry. I'm so sorry that in the marketplace of ideas, your ideas were not popular. But anyway, she does say, yet few on the left offer up well-developed ideas on the crisis of masculinity and the role of men. Well, how could they? Certainly, there is no one speaking to lost and disenfranchised males with anything like his reach. It's not enough to simply call out the patriarchy, toxic masculinity, or misogyny. That's the problem. Because you are saying that all men are part of the patriarchy, they're all toxically male, and they're all misogynistic. In some way or another. Not necessarily all the time, at all places, in all situations, but you are saying that in general, these are aspects of men and masculinity. Addressing the perceived lack of purpose and meaning in these people's lives would be the first step in engaging the worrying number of disillusioned young men whose frustration, fear, and anger is currently being harnessed by hardliners, be they jihadist recruiters or Trump. Listen, right, Trump is not that radical. It's just the left has become so fucking radical that things Trump is asking for, like 90s era Bill Clinton policies, are seen as being like hard right. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. The problem is with the people at The Guardian. And the last paragraph in this is exactly what I mean. It isn't about sympathy or excuses. It's about identifying patterns and breaking them and offering solution. Why can't we have sympathy for young men? Why can't we have sympathy for young men who come from broken homes, who are told by the society around them that they're evil and they're going to be evil, they're awful people, they're oppressing women, there's something wrong with being male? Why can't we have sympathy for these people who've been demonized by the society that born and raised them? And then now you're surprised, oh, they're going off and they're attacking the society. I mean, like, what the fuck does someone attack a Walmart for? Like, why would you do that? If not an explicit attack on society itself, as a way of just attacking randos. You don't know these people, but you are saying, look, somewhere in the wider society, I'm going to make sure that they realize that they're not safe. Because I have been demonized, I've been rejected my whole life. Why should that why should that person not be entitled to some sympathy? If we gave them sympathy, maybe they wouldn't turn into this. Maybe they wouldn't go on mad killing rampages. And I'm sure that that's why you're writing this article. Try and stop that kind of thing. But don't frame it in the term that they are inherently evil. Which is why you can't give them sympathy. They are not inherently evil. They are broken. They are lost. They are alone. And they don't know what to do. And they're angry. They're left on their own. And it's people like you who have done this. It's The Guardian that has done this. It's feminists that have done this. Take ownership of the terrible monsters you have created.